Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to episode number 108 of the Hobbies and Happiness podcast, where we talk about the hobby that makes us happy, card games. I'm your host, Dan.
I'm Jim, and today we're talking with our main man, MainDeck Dan.
Nice. Like it. Very, very well thought out, my friend. So we've got an enjoyable conversation with the man himself, MainDeck Dan. But before we get to that conversation, we've got to talk about our sponsor. If you head over to our affiliate link, www.audibletrial.com/hobbies and happiness, you can sign up for your free 30-day trial of Amazon's Audible service. Right when you sign up, you get a free audiobook added to your account. What's better is if you're an Amazon Prime member, you get 2 free credits added to your account. So when you sign up, follow that link, you get those free credits, and then you can exchange those credits for a free audiobook on the service. You know what? One day you might eventually be able to get is the Alpha Clash novel. The audiobook tier has been unlocked, ladies and gentlemen. So I will tell you, I'll be sure to let you guys know when that gets produced. And
honestly, that was a great idea.
It 100% is.
Great idea.
100% is. It's not there yet, ladies and gentlemen, but you want to have that credit on Amazon Audible. That way you can be ready for it when it gets on there. Because, guys, it is a fantastic book. So, again, follow that link, www.audibletrial.com/hobbies and happiness. Sign up for your free 30-day trial today. And then again, if you cancel before the end of that 30 days, you still get to keep that credit on your account. So again, audibletrial.com/hobbies and happiness. Sign up today. All right, so today we have another interview, a fantastic conversation. We talked with another Dan number 2. He is on the channel MainDeck. I love that name. We talked about that a little bit.
It's great.
It's fantastic. It's not a side deck. Not a side deck. Not an auxiliary deck. It is the main deck. So perfectly chosen. Very, very well done. You guys can check out his channel over on YouTube at MainDeck. Talks all just like us. He talks about a ton of different card games. So we talk about 4 specific card games in the episode. We talked about My Hero. We talked about Star Wars Unlimited. We talked about Altered. And then we talked about one other.
Grand Archive.
Grand Archive. Yes. There we go. It was Grand Archive. Thank you. So we learned some new games, games that we haven't really talked about on the channel. We let Dan tell us all about these games and why we should play them, why other people should play them. So I'm just going to get out of the way and let's get into that conversation with MainDeck Dan himself. All right, today on the podcast, we are joined by Mr. MainDeck Dan from the YouTube channel MainDeck Dan. How are you doing today? And how does it feel to be the number 2 Dan in the room?
I'm doing wonderful, guys. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be chatting with you, both you, number 1 Dan, and Jim as well. You guys, I've just loved your podcast. Been a ton of fun. So when you invited me on, I couldn't wait.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's jump into it. So today, what we're going to do is we've got about 4 games to talk about. 3 of which I don't really think we've talked about on the channel at all. One we have, and we're quite excited about it. But before we get into that, Dan, can you tell our audience a little bit about yourself and kind of how long you've been in the TCG space?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's been like 20 years-ish now, I think, that I've been playing TCGs. I think I'm an old school now at this point. I mean, there used to be the old school above me who were like, oh, I was there when Magic was founded and stuff. But at this point, I feel like I've maybe finally gotten there. I started a lot like some of your other guests in the past. I started with the Star Wars customizable card game. So
yes.
That was trial by fire, by the way. And you're like a 9-year-old trying to play that thing.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, I got into that, and then I bounced around Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon. I actually played Pokemon, by the way. I didn't just collect it when I was a kid. So
Pokemon back then.
Yeah, I was referencing one of your previous episodes too. There, man. Every time I listen to your episodes, I'm like, I wish I were in this conversation.
He's like, I was one of the few at Toys R Us on that Saturday pre-release. No one else was there.
Because I was Toys R Us, exactly.
I know.
Oh, for real, man. Yeah, like I bounced around. I played so many games. Dragon Ball Z from Score, Duel Masters. Boy,
one of my favorites.
Inuyasha. Anyone play that one? That was a weird one. That was a fun one.
Cards. That was it.
Nice. Yeah, I played games forever. Finally, after years and years of playing these games, got a job at the local game store, became a judge for Magic. I dabbled in judging some other games before then too. I learned that when you become a judge for Friday Night Magic at your local store, you don't actually play anymore at that point.
Yep.
Which was unfortunately sort of a harsh reality that I had to go through there. And I just started basically purely judging at that point. And then following that, I got into like this point in like 2014, got into the Dragon Ball Z game when it got relaunched from Panini. I have some of these back here somewhere too. No, maybe I don't actually. Anyway, they invited me. I became one of the highest level judges for that game as well.
Nice.
Super Saiyan 3 level judge is what it was called.
He went further beyond.
I did. Yeah, I mean, it was, a lot of this was like small games, like big fish in a small pond scenarios, right? It's not like I was really a quote unquote big deal, but to like 12 other people, they knew my name. So I guess that was kind of cool.
Yes.
Dragon Ball Z collapsed. Panini invited me to help develop a card game for them. That's what I actually have back here, the Metacross TCG. I was a developer on the short-lived Metacross TCG. And during that time was when I decided, content creation sounds really fun. And I jumped on to YouTube and I made the current channel by a different name. It went through like 3 different names before it is MainDeck now. And I finally like settled on something I actually like.
Mm-hmm. I love the name, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you so much.
It's beautiful.
He's the main deck. He's not a side deck.
Yes.
He's always the main piece.
Yes.
I mean, that was honestly, that was part of it when I was sitting there trying to think of I went through a couple of just like honestly stupid names. In retrospect, I'm like, why did I even think that was a good name? And I sat there and thought of it and I thought, like, every deck has a main deck. And I love this connotation of it gives you this idea that this is the main channel or something, which, we're still relatively small, but growing and really enjoying that, having a great time. We have a wonderful community. Our community on Discord has just been incredible, popping off. We've been running online leagues for a bunch of games. And it's just, I'm having such a blast with where we're at right now, and especially with the wealth of incredible TCGs out today.
Right. All right. So before we continue, Jim's got a question that we always throw at people who have a background in Magic the Gathering, and we know you do. So Jim, take it away.
It is also in his background.
Yeah,
it's not just his background,
literally
but it's in his background.
For those of you just listening to the podcast and not watching, first of all, what are you doing? I mean, if you can't, that's okay.
Are you here?
It's literally
go
in the background of the frame for Dan. So go ahead, Jim.
All right. So in Magic the Gathering, there are 5 colors and a colorless color, but we don't talk about that one. In it, what are your favorite colors to play? Multiple colors or singular? And depending on how you answer, it's really only one wrong answer. It'll just define the rest of the conversation.
So, having listened to your podcast a fair amount, I am quite familiar with the wrong answer here, but I'm going to assure you that I'm not just trying to butter Jim up right now.
Oh, man.
Hold on. Let me get ready. Ooh, all right, I'm ready.
Honestly, you ask any of my friends what I play, I play everything. First of all, I do play everything. I dabble in it all. I have I think over there I have a bag with 12 commander decks in it. But my favorite,
that's the right answer.
Yeah, that's true.
That's the right answer.
The most common color that I play among all my decks, and when I'm playing construction and everything, is black. And secondarily, I am a big control fan. So blue-black is just really blue-white sometimes, but I love the blue-black control. Big fan.
Beautiful.
Yeah, no, that's a good answer. Mm-hmm. That's fair. All right, I can live with that, Jim.
Honestly, you pick any of the colors of red, black, blue, and white for a control list, and you kind of do pretty well.
Has there ever been such a thing as green control?
So there were Turbofog decks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Turbofog decks have been, there's been a couple metagames where Turbofog actually was a top tier deck.
There was one recently as well.
Relatively.
In standard.
Yep, in standard.
Yeah, when you had Uro and Growth Spiral legal, it was, and Oko, just nonsense. Just nonsense.
Whoa!
Oh,
Yeah, everyone retches when they hear that.
yeah, pretty much.
What was the buy a box promo that was taking
Nexus
extra
of Fate.
Nexus,
Nexus
of,
of
Fate
Fate.
with Fog stuff.
Oh,
What an
that
idea
was-
that was.
Dude.
That-
buy
How about everyone just has free repeatable time walks whenever they
The
want?
best part was, since it was foil, once yours curled, you couldn't just get a new non-foil version of it or utilize one as a proxy. So if your card were ever curled in a tournament, they would bring you something that wasn't a real card. It would just be like, oh, here's in place of your broken one.
in place of your physically actual broken card.
Yes, yes.
Ooh, can I do some foreshadowing?
Yes, go ahead.
Boy, it would be incredible to have a game at some point where if you needed to just print a non-foil version of a card, you just could go ahead and pop on and over it. That'd be cool.
Sick.
I'm super excited to actually talk about that. But before we get to that game, we're going to talk about the first. So I told you earlier, we got 4 games we're going to talk about. The first one we're going to touch on is My Hero. My Hero Academia. Jim and I have
Great show.
Yes. What we have like a little more than 0 experience. We played it at Gen Con. Isn't that what we played?
We did.
Okay. Now, we'll get to our thoughts here in a second. But for each of these games, there's going to be kind of 3 questions we're going to touch on. Number 1, why you're excited about it, why you're playing it, right? Let's start with that. Why are you excited about My Hero? Why? Because you've done content about this game in the past. So what excites you about My Hero?
Yeah, all 4 of these games are just games that on MainDeck, they're kind of our core games that we're pushing. And all of them, I'm just going to get this out of the way right now. All of these are games where I just for one, I purely just enjoy playing them. I think they're really just fun experiences to dive into. Obviously, I'm like you guys. Card games are fun, just in general. Okay, so that's kind of just a gimme answer. But so My Hero Academia is actually officially known as Universe's CCG, previously known as the Universal Fighting System CCG, and that's actually something a lot of people don't know. It's kind of a weird quirk right now, pun intended, of how they are. How they're marketing the game is it really comes off as it's the My Hero CCG because of how licensing deals have kind of worked with this game in the past.
Right.
But My Hero they're currently in My Hero block, and they're heading into the 6th set of My Hero sets in a row in a game that previously featured a crazy amount of different IPs constantly. We're talking prior to this in kind of reverse chronological order, if I can remember this, or Soul Calibur, Yu Yu Hakusho, a game called 7th Cross, which was really funny because it was in this game, they made a trading card game set for a board game that hadn't been produced yet. And then the board game took years. The pandemic happened and they canned it. So what ultimately happened was that the 7th Cross set is the only official 7th Cross thing released. So it's
Hilarious.
That is funny.
it's kind of like its own IP now. But yeah, prior to that, Mortal Kombat, Cowboy Bebop, Mega Man, so much stuff was in UFS before this. Street Fighter 2, of course. Gotta
Has
mention
more
that,
IPs than Weiss Schwartz.
well, I don't know about that now. Weiss is pretty crazy.
It's been around for 8 to 10 years, ranging out.
Yeah.
Weiss had Disney before Lorcana did too.
Oh yeah.
In Japan only. But anyway,
Right.
so what I love about Universes, I love this eclectic grouping of IPs. I think it's just really funny to be I'm playing Mega Man against Spike Spiegel and stuff really off the wall pairings sometimes was just one of the things that first got me wow, that's kind of interesting. You play this game though, and Universes is such a unique game system. And it's out of all the TCGs I played, it's either number 1 or number 2 in the most insanely complex board states that no player should be expected to be able to handle. And when you go to your first Universes tournament and you're trying to play competitively, my first one about round 3 or 4, I had literally a splitting headache. I'm I cannot think this hard.
I can't play that
That
game.
does not surprise me.
Now, I want to be clear, that's that's not necessarily a good thing, but it does mean that when you really start to when you start to get muscle memory for some of this stuff, you start getting into the game, you start to recognize card patterns based on just like images on the board. You see the card across there and your brain starts to go, okay, I only need to think about that during this particular situation, right? Right. You kind of develop your plasticity of your brain. You develop these neurons, right? And it gets easier. And when you get to that stage, oh my goodness, the competitive play in universes is just at this insanely high level. It's so crazy. The difference between me and some of our Mitch, who's part of the MainDeck team, is our best UFS player for sure. And he is he's on a different, he's God tier compared to me. I'm just a puny peasant on the ground. I feel like he's going to blush if he hears this, but for real, that when I first saw that, when I got into it, I was like, how am I so much worse with my 2 decades of card game experience? You generally, so there's some transfer, right? Your knowledge transfer when you jump into games. I was like, it's like I've never played a card game before in my life.
Yeah.
I found that so fascinating.
Universes, but it's not universal at all.
Wow, that's Jim. No wonder you're the guy who does the openings.
I like that. No wonder you're the guy who does the openings. That's funny.
But yeah, it's that combination of just a very unique play system with this insane depth once you get into it. It's just it's a crackerjack system. It's really fun. I love it.
How many times through understanding the game, learning how to play, did it take for you to know, hey, this is something I'm going to enjoy? Because I'll be honest, when we played it at Gen Con, granted, we played it once.
Yes.
We played it once.
It was 2 or 3 turns, if that?
It was a couple turns. Yeah. Jim, what did you say to me? What did you say?
Man.
Because you noticed something about me.
Yeah, I noticed at some point playing the game, Dan just disconnected from it emotionally and mentally. He's just I don't even care. Dude's talking to him, and Dan's just whatever, man.
Is that how it really looked?
Dude, that's exactly how it looked.
So, and it's funny though, because in all honesty, I was trying so hard to listen and comprehend. Yeah. It was just the system was just so very foreign to me. It was something that I was not used to, and was I'm trying to make connections. And you just talked about knowledge transfer. I'm okay, where is there something to where I'm actually used to this type of mechanic? And it was nowhere for me. So I'm just I'm trying to learn and understand. And it's not that I wasn't enjoying it. It was just I was searching. Yeah. I was searching and trying to find out, okay, what's something that's going to make this understandable for me? And I didn't get there, but that's not to say I didn't have a good time. The guy who was helping us, he did a really good job. Yeah. But you could tell he's been playing this for a while. He knows everything about it. And I'm just all right, I understand how it is talking to a complete noob. I get it. So my question to you then is how long did it take you to actually understand the game well enough to where you could sit down and play competitively?
Well, competitively, I don't know if I can do that yet.
Comfortably, no, we'll say comfortably.
I played in a few pretty competitive events, and I felt like I did okay, but it was one of those situations where I came out at oh, I know exactly where I completely screwed myself in
That's
6 of the 10 games today, for sure. Yep. So, and the other 4 are just a mystery. I don't know why I got destroyed. But I would. Well, yeah, and you know what? One thing you guys I'm sure noticed too is that there's a very just obvious RNG element in the game in the resource system, right?
Oh,
which is
goodness.
Yeah.
I hate it.
And I can see that, right? I get that. I always try and say, not every TCG is for everybody. We have the benefit right now of having so many card games on the market. If there's a game you're not enjoying, okay, go that's good.
There's probably one that you will enjoy.
Absolutely. But yeah, for universes, I think right away, as someone, and I approach this, which I'm sure you guys do this too. I approach this sometimes from a tabletop gamer perspective, like a board gaming perspective, because there's a period of my life where I was only board games all the time too. And so I saw that system of I play the card to the card pool, I make a check, and that determines how much extra I might have to pay in, or if I even have to pay anything extra in order to play that card. I saw that, And I thought, well, that's weird. That's interesting. And like my brain, instead of kind of like recoiling, and I think everyone's gonna have a different reaction to this, I was immediately like, well, I got to see how this plays out. I gotta play with this a little bit. I got to see where I can push boundaries. Like, how does this work? Then you get into the like an attack sequence, and then you see like players are taking turns playing enhances, and it's like you're just trying to do a little tug of war to like one up each other a little bit. Just ultimately have this attack be a little more on your side than on your opponent, so you can like try to push your actually your win condition, right? And when I saw that stuff, even it was in the first game, even I saw that, and I was like, okay, I can tell there's something here, but it is going to take me a few games to like understand this. And it did. And I had to start play a few games of it before it started to click with me. And I was like, okay, like I get this flow. I understand this. I see where cards are good. I see where cards aren't so good. And one thing that, I understand about the game now that I didn't quite understand then is that it's one of those games where I think there's this very thin margin between cards that are quite good and cards that are not, ultimately not great, like from a competitive perspective. And every TCG has sort of a different sort of, I don't know, range of cards that you are like acceptably playable or not. Universes, I think, has a lot of characters that are certainly playable, but it has some cards that just push the boundaries of it. So if you end up like going against those decks with a deck that's like a lower tier, I don't know, man, it's not much of a game sometimes.
Right.
Yeah.
It's rough. So like the rogue decks aren't really too good. It's just some people like to play them.
I think the interesting thing about the game is that the game's resource system, instead of having 5 or 6 colors, it has 12, right? And the card pool becomes, every single card has 3 different resources on it. So it means it's as if every card was like, you can play this in a red deck, a blue deck, or a green deck.
Right. Right.
But then there's also 9 other colors on top of that, and you pick one of them to play with. And when you add that in this massive card pool, it does mean that there is so much actual like rogue potential in there if you just find the right sequence of like good cards and a decent character, and then like a metagame strategy that you're using just to outwit some of the popular decks. You can, like, the last regional they had up in New York, they had 3 completely off the radar characters in the top 8. There were random mafia characters from the like Yakuza arc in I don't know if you guys are familiar with I think it's season 4 of My Hero or whatever, but like it's like they fight the mob basically. Oh. And for this set that Undaunted Raid, they're like, let's just make every Yakuza guy into a character. So I don't know half of these people. I don't remember them. They're like they were in like 5 minutes of an episode where they just got like punched out, and then that's it. But boom, like top 8 regional with that character because they found the right combination of stuff.
Yeah.
I think that's so cool too.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've got another question I think I want to ask about each of these games.
Real quick, can I throw something in about the game?
Sure.
So when we were playing all right, it's kind of a confession. When we were playing at Gen Con, right, I was kind of chatting up the guy a bit more than you.
Yeah, you were.
You definitely noticed. But I don't know if that's just a problem I have when it's learning these games, just making other people around me have fun. But I was kind of chatting him up.
That's not a problem, though, Jim.
But here, check this out.
Okay.
I did it so that way he would kind of just tell me what to play. Because I didn't understand the game at all. He was like, oh, this is the phase where you do this. And I just turned my brain off and did it.
That's right.
I
remember
started throwing things out there, talking to this guy. I'm like, what do I do here? And he's like, play this and this. I'm like, cool, boom, boom. That's why it's a problem.
Fact check, true. He did do that.
Yeah.
That's funny. All right, back to the question at hand. No, you're good. That is funny though.
That's very funny.
Oh man. Okay. So for each of these games, why should somebody play My Hero? Like what is or who is My Hero targeting? Like what kind of players would be fun or would look at My Hero and have a good time, you think?
It's a tough question because this game is actually the company is going through a transition period right now.
Mhm.
They were previously called Jasco. They were recently. I'm not going to go into the details, but basically they were
Sure.
acquired by a couple of people who played the game, thought it was dope, wanted to invest in. They were like these guys are awesome, by the way. I just want to be really clear before I jump to this. Paul and Lohan are super cool guys. But the perspective that you can easily kind of take from the outside is like they kind of just picked a horse to bet on. They're like, well,
Mm,
they
sure.
they came from sort of an investing background, and they're
Yeah.
like,
Yep.
what's a game where I think we can just take this thing to the moon? And they couldn't
Yep.
pick a game
Yep.
that was already on the moon, so it's like Magic's
Yeah.
out. Like it's not like they're going
Yep.
to go buy Hasbro or something, you
Yep.
know.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but they're like, this game looks pretty cool, and they
Yeah.
played the game, they love it, they got into it, and now the company's transitioning from like literally like a 4-person company to like a 50-person company. I don't know, whatever. It might be fake news, that number, but it's like they've got a lot of people now
Sure.
that
Sure.
are working on the game. And
Sure.
I think their target is really changing. And so I think if you ask me this question again in a couple months, when we know even just like a little bit more about what's going on,
Mhm.
I would have a much more clear answer for you. My answer for the My Hero Academia phase when Jasco runs it is I have no clue who I think they were targeting. I think it was um, just the established player base, and then anyone who thinks My Hero is cool,
Mhm.
right?
Sure.
It's like not necessarily, I think, a winning strategy at that point for growing your game well.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but what I think this company knows is that they have a game system that is truly unique, and a lot of people who want to get competitive in a card game will find it and explore it, and they may get really into this game,
Mhm.
and they want to really play that to their advantage. Um,
Mhm.
at the same time, they need IPs that people care about, because I'm
Mhm.
gonna be honest, Seventh Cross, not a high selling set. That
Right.
one didn't
Right.
didn't move a lot of cases.
Right.
So My Hero was like a boon to them because like, wow, like brand recognition right
Right.
there.
Mhm.
But the weird thing is you toss this anime game out there for like let's look at games like One Piece, right? Where Bandai just tosses out a popular anime IP. They make it a easy to get into the game, super like
Mhm.
simple resource system, fun game. I like One Piece too, really cool. But like, what an easy like game to just start playing. It plays kind of like how games, it takes questions that like, oh, how do I play resources? It just plays it from the top of your deck. You don't have to worry about it. Don't even stress. Curves you right through every turn of the game. By the way, games with curves work so much easier for learning than universes where you can just play anything right away.
Mhm.
Um, and universes is basically the exact opposite of all that, but they toss on this My Hero license that like you expect you could just get into and play, and it doesn't really come off that way.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
so I think they have a struggle, and they have to continue to work on it.
Mhm.
The next set, Jetburn, they're revamping card images, card layouts. They're really making things look nice for
Mhm.
collectors. But um, those collectors are still going to be like you guys. They're going to play the game and be like, I don't know what's going on here. Honestly, like I'm being frank with you guys because
Yeah.
you're like,
Yeah.
I'm on your channel, not on my channel. So I'm going to be totally frank.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
but it's a
About
great
to
game.
not
They just
be
have
on
to
the
figure that
channel.
out.
All right, so that's My Hero. It's definitely an interesting game, and guys, if you want to learn more about the game, you could definitely go check out Dan's videos over on his channel. If you want to learn more about My Hero, the next game we're going to talk about here is Grand Archive. Grand Archive is a relatively new TCG. Did it launch on Kickstarter initially? Was it an initial
Yes.
launch on Kickstarter?
Yep.
Okay, that's what I thought. So Grand Archive, I mean, honestly, this game has been going around social media for the past few months. It's been honestly, when it first came out, it was very popular from what it seemed like. They did a pretty big marketing push. From my perspective, from the outside looking in, right? So let's talk about that a little bit. So tell us a little bit about the game, like what the game is, what it's about. And then what you're excited about, why you're enjoying the game.
Yeah, Grand Archive is the way they bill it is as an anime themed card game with Western game design. So the idea is like low numbers. I mean, things are written like their comprehensive rules are very much modeled after Magic's comp rules. Um, The game uses a similar stack system. There's a lot of similarities to games like Magic, but it's got a very unique resource system where you set cards from your hand down to play cards, and then the next turn you can banish those to play cards from a separate deck, and then anything left over you return back to your hand. So as you draw cards in the game, you gain both more flexibility, but you also gain more resources to work with, which you then may spend to one of the things you do from that extra deck, your material deck, is to level up your champion with the goal of becoming increasingly more powerful, reaching a level where you can play some of the strongest cards in the game, and then beating your opponent's champion down by attacking with allies or throwing attacks directly from your champion, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing I love about this game is, number one, I just think the company's awesome. The company is doing really, really good things. They're one of the most involved small TCG companies, like directly involved with their player base, and they're the company that I think I said this a little bit in the interview, that video that we posted as well. We chatted with Alan, who's one of the team members at Weebs the Shore. And they are they're a small company that punches way above their weight class. You wouldn't necessarily think by just like looking on the outside that they're as small as they are, but they do a lot of things really right in how they respond to the needs of the player base. Very balanced approach, but very smart approach, answering the things that need to be answered. The game itself is extremely fun. It's competitively it's I think similar to Universes, one of those games where when you really get to that competitive echelon of stuff, it's quite a bit more powerful than some of the casual stuff. And I think that's something that I'd like to see them continue to try and work on a little bit. But there's a very diverse metagame right now. They've done very well in kind of balancing things out to create a lot of viable decks. And the game just it plays kind of like games, but in its own way. And it's with the aesthetic, I just really enjoy it.
Okay. So the mechanic that I found very interesting. Now, granted, I haven't played this game at all. Jim, have you played it at all?
No.
Okay.
I watched a quarter of a game.
I was gonna say I've watched people play it, and I'm probably about the same as you at Gen Con. We watch Liam play it. Yeah. So the whole putting cards from your hand down and then getting them back just seems, that's another like mechanic that just seems foreign to me. Can you talk us through that? Is that the resource system? Is that correct?
Yeah. Yep, that's the resource system.
So how does that work exactly?
Okay, so I guess we'll go through a little journey of the mind's eye here. So you imagine you have a card in your hand. It's a ordinary bear is what it's called. It's literally the name of a card in the game too. So the ordinary bear costs 3 resources.
It's a 2/2 for 2.
It is a 2/3 for 3. No, it's not a grizzly bear. It's an ordinary bear.
Oh, okay.
Come on, they're different.
Sorry.
The ordinary bears in this game are a little bit scarier than grizzly bears, actually, for whatever reason. So, so it costs 3. And what that means is you're going to have this card in your hand, the bear you're playing, and you have 3 more cards at least. You choose any 3 cards in your hand other than the bear, and then you put them face down into a zone called your memory. And then you put the bear into play. Now, on the subsequent turn, you will have a phase where you can materialize from your deck. And this is where, like, this is really the wrinkle that makes this very interesting, is that when you materialize from your material deck, it's like a 1 play per turn thing that I'm trying to think of a good analog, but like it's kind of like an extra deck in Yu-Gi-Oh, I guess, but if you could only use it once per turn. It's really, if you play Flesh and Blood, it's like in some ways it's like your arsenal in Flesh and Blood of just a bunch of cards, an armory of stuff you have set aside. Usually it's like if you're playing the warrior, you have some swords in there. You might have some trinkets and baubles that do certain things. And your champion has levels. Your main character has levels. So you level up from that deck as well. And to play cards from there, you need to banish at random cards from your memory. So if you chose to play nothing on your previous turn, you have a very limited use of your material deck the next turn. You can only materialize things that cost 0. Whereas if you played 3 cards, if you played that ordinary bear, you had 3 cards in there, you could play anything with up to cost 3. Now, cost 3 things would be quite rare because that's a lot of cards to completely banish from your hand. It's like it's imagine a card in Magic that says in additional cost to cast this, you have to discard 3 cards. Like that card's got to be pretty good.
I'm good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I'm good.
Right.
I pass.
Right.
In this case, when you're doing that in this game, you're unlocking your final level typically, and then unlocking extremely powerful cards that sort of make that card advantage back up. Card disadvantage, I should say. And after you're done materializing whatever you want to, then you pick everything left in your memory back up in your hand. So they're constantly shifting in and out. There's a risk reward game because you can go ahead and dump a ton of stuff from your hand. You'd be like, okay, I'm going to play this. I'm going to play Bear this turn, and I'm going to play a Young Beast Bonder, and that's going to cost my whole hand. On the next turn, then, if you want to banish anything to play anything, you have to banish at random from a set of cards, which may include cards that you would rather like to have for this next turn or for the end of the game. So you have to, make some decisions like, should I play more conservatively, make sure I'm only banishing the cards that are least useful to me at the cost of playing less to the board? Which, as a card gamer, usually when people start to experience that, they do exactly what you're doing. They're, oh, okay. I see. It's interesting.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's the gist of the mechanic, and it's quite different. But once you play through a round or two of it, you really it becomes quite intuitive. You kind of get it, and then you start screwing up a bunch too because you're like, I didn't mean to put that down. The math is a little weird sometimes.
Right.
I know I'd messed that up a lot.
Yeah, you would. This reminds me of a video I recently watched. And this is a topic I want to dive into like in a whole other episode, right? But it's talking about like TCG Renaissance / Resurgence, right? And we've talked about this on our show in the past where I think we are in that sort of space. Like I think we are in a TCG Resurgence / Renaissance era. Okay. I know we've had Joey on the show before. He talked about the temper tantrum era, what he calls it, which I understand his point of view, right?
True.
Right. But I watched a video recently and somebody was saying like the idea of a renaissance is, I mean, when you think about the actual renaissance that, our civilization experienced was grand, was beautiful, right? There were so many new ideas. There was so much creativity flowing. And it was truly a glorious time in society, right? In civilization. Okay. But saying how, especially in TCGs now, there's nothing new. It's all people, it's all greed and people wanting to get rich, which is that there? Yeah, sure, it is. But when I hear someone describe Grand Archive, that seems pretty novel to me. That seems like a pretty new idea. Not everything, and particularly in TCGs now, it doesn't seem like everything is just a reskin of Magic. It's a reskin of Pokemon. Do they exist? 100%. Yes, they do. However, the difference between now and 90s, early 2000s is that was a ton of reskins and a lot of people trying to get rich quick, right? Do those things still exist? 100% they do. But, when Dan, when you're describing to me Grand Archive, my interest is piqued. I'm like, oh, this seems like a pretty interesting and novel idea. Now, I'm like, all right, I kind of want to learn more here and dig into it a little bit more. Right. I want to get your quick take on that before we move on to something else here. What's your initial take on that? Like the TCG space now and all these different new ideas. I mean, with all these different games that you're in, are they all pretty unique, different, and new ideas? Do they bring that to the table?
So I've heard your take here, of course. I've heard Joey's take as well. So I totally see those perspectives. If you ask me, I don't think there is a doubt about it. I think we are in a TCG renaissance. I think I don't hesitate actually to call this the second golden age of TCGs. It does feel like that to me right now. Like as someone who, I caught the tail end of the first one. And was playing there and at the tail end of that one, we were seeing that was when Score was going wild, pumping out every anime under the sun as a TCG. Case closed TCG, Dragon Booster TCG. They had everything out there.
Right. And the Shaman King TCG?
Shaman King TCG. That's another. Yeah.
What about the Austin Powers one?
Oh man.
Oh, dude, I got Austin Powers right over here. You want me to get the cards?
Yes, dude. Yes, I want to see those 100%. But anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, baby.
I wouldn't even dare to try doing that right now. There. One of the hallmarks of being in this age is when the market looks so ripe for actually making money that a lot of these kind of like get rich quick kind of cash grab, like IP grab games start to flood out. When you see those flooding out, I think it's a sign that you're in the golden age, but not necessarily, not necessarily the golden part of the golden age, right? Is
right.
seeing those games coming out there.
Right.
But the interesting thing about us now is that, and the phrase that always comes to mind when we talk about this is that we're standing on the shoulders of giants at this point, because when we,
100%.
When we look back then, there were a lot of, like you said, there were a lot of just like, oh, here's Magic, but it's got a sci-fi skin on it or whatever, stuff like that. You also had a bunch of very creative stuff, but the creative stuff then was like, it was if they weren't copying Magic, they were just making their like own thing from nowhere. They were out at like, we're talking like Star Trek CCG was the first one before Star Wars CCG. Like those games, I mean, even when I show them to people today, they're like, what is this? Like, what this is like, you've never seen something like this before. Even if you've been playing TCGs from the past 15 years, like it's just so different.
Right.
Now what happens is that a lot of these games come out, and instead of just having to like come up with their own idea, designers are able to play not only TCGs, but board games, card games, video games, digital CCGs, all sorts of stuff. And they glean these ideas and they go, that is such a good mechanic. What if I combined it with this unique thing? And so you get a lot of games where people, I think, are very, very quick to call them out as being copies, clones, whatever, of certain other things. But you can only kind of come up with new ideas for so long. There's no new ideas under the sun, right? Being the other, the Shakespeare quote or something. So, I mean, like there certainly is a lot of innovation, but I think you do sometimes have to adjust your lens for what you're calling innovation right now, and understand that the reason people are making these games that have similarities is because those are damn good mechanics. Like,
yeah, for sure.
They're good cores to get, like Lorcana, man, like a good core to a game that then tosses its own ideas on top, has its own perspective that it's approaching sort of game design from, that is certainly like effectively unique in the marketplace right now.
For sure.
And it's great. It's good to see it. And that's the stuff that makes me see like, yeah, I think this is a golden age for sure.
This is a topic that, in all honesty, I want to have you on again, and that way we can just talk about that, because I know we can talk about that for a while.
100%.
So I was like, I wanted to just ask that, right? But I'm like, I know if we just keep talking, it's going to go on forever. But anyway, all right. Okay, before we move on to Altered, okay. Lastly, about Grand Archive, who would enjoy Grand Archive right now? What kind of TCG player would be interested in and do well with a game like Grand Archive?
I think the players who take to Grand Archive the best are, number one, people who appreciate the anime aesthetic. I don't think you have to enjoy the game, but just with Lorcana, with everything, if you enjoy the IP quite a bit, it enhances your enjoyment a massive amount. Grand Archive doesn't have its own IP, but it has a particular aesthetic it aims for. We're talking like it's got plenty of waifus and all this stuff. So if you like that kind of thing, that's going to appeal to you.
But, you son of a person, I'm in.
But in particular, I think if you enjoy that and you really like competitive Magic, Flesh and Blood, or you bounced off of competitive Yu-Gi-Oh, but you want to play something that is equally, that like you can get really competitive with, you will really enjoy Grand Archive. It's at a competitive level. And I say this because right now our local group is deep into testing for the first major tournament, which we're flying off to next week, actually, in Houston. But like we're deep in the meta, like at the stage where we're really talking about tweaks to deal with metagame problems. And it's just like, it feels like we're going to get totally surprised when we go to the tournament. And it's that really fun sort of competitive spirit, high level play, very interactive end games. that I think competitive players who like anime would just like you should try it for sure.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. I'll have to watch some of your videos because it's a game that I've seen a lot of, haven't dove into it really at all. But now I'm even more interested and curious about it. So that is Grand Archive. All right, the next one we want to talk about is Altered. So Altered, we first heard about at Gen Con when we ran into our friend Nelson from Nelson All Over Cards. He ran into us on the show floor and was like, "Hey, have you guys heard about Altered?" We're like, "What the heck is Altered?" He's like, "Yeah, so it's his TCG, right?" We're like, "Okay, you son of a gun."
He said, "Keep this on the down low." Look over his shoulder. First of all,
I got invited to a very secret meeting, and I'm going to tell you all about it, right? So anyway, Dan, you've got some stuff on your channel about Altered. So can you tell everybody first what Altered is, and then why you're hyped about it, why you're excited about it?
Yeah. By the way, that weekend was a bit of a blur, but like I'm pretty sure I was in the same session with Nelson at the with the Altered guys. So I don't know why exactly, but they caught our channel and they popped over and they sent me an invite, and I was like, "Yep, yeah, absolutely, I'll come check it out." And the story I like to tell everyone with this was that when I was going to this, I'm sure you guys would understand this too. Random board game company invites you to, and like, by the way, random, like they literally haven't made anything except they've been working on Altered for 3 years. So I've never heard of their company before. Now I understand where they came from, but that's beside the point.
Sure.
They invite you to go view their new TCG that's going to change the industry. Okay. If you get that in your inbox, I'm sure you're just like me. Yeah.
Spam. Dude,
okay.
I think so many of that stuff I'm like, spam. Okay. I got too much stuff to do. I don't know who you are. I'm sorry. That's what that would be my reaction.
And that's completely fair. Like, if you've been in the industry long enough, anytime anyone says like, we're changing the industry, like, okay,
okay, dude.
You guys remember Redikai? Do you guys know that one? It was,
I believe so.
Yeah, Jim's got me.
I just know the name, and like I know I've seen this.
Okay.
I've never played it.
2010 or 2011, I think it was supposed to change the industry because they used all their cards were clear acrylic.
Yeah,
that was changing the industry.
I got a lightning bolt card that's clear. I don't know.
Yep. Okay. I think that there was like a Gen Con promo that like I sold for $50 or something because you could just pick it up.
Remember how much you sold it for.
Anyway, anytime a company says that, I just like, Redikai died like the next month. So, it just like, it doesn't really matter to me, but I gave them the benefit of the doubt. It's like, this sounds fun. I'll jump in. It sounds cool. Like whatever. They seemed professional enough. Went to this thing. Mind was actually blown. Like I can't express how. Yes, I can't express how myself and MainDeck Jordan, we went to this, we sat down just completely with this mindset of this is going to be whatever.
Jim just found the lightning bolt card.
The Redikai card.
I got
it. Yeah, isn't it cool? It's like the whole card is clear except there's a little like lightning bolt on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh wow.
And you stacked them on top of your champions. Whatever. That's beside the point. But yeah, so we left there just being like absolutely impressed because what these guys are doing, it's not necessarily that the game itself, like mechanically, is that crazy. One of the cool things they're doing in the game is they're doing like a non-violent approach to TCGs, like a instead of focusing on bloodshed and stuff, it's about it's a competitive head-to-head game that has interaction. Absolutely, don't take the wrong message from this, but it's ultimately about getting two people to meet in the middle. It's instead of like reducing your opponent's life total or destroying them.
And magic.
It kind of is. It, like literally the leaders you play are a human character and their imaginary friend. And you're trying to get the two to meet in the middle in this exploring the world thing. But other than that, like kind of that meeting in the middle system, if you imagine the base rule set of Star Wars Unlimited, it's very similar, actually.
Okay.
Interestingly enough,
is solid, which is already solid.
I'm a fan. It's good. But what blew my mind about the system was what they're doing to approach how the TCG industry market works. And there's an hour-long video on our channel, and I'm obviously not going to
link
talk
it.
for an hour.
We'll link it here, guys, if you
Okay.
want to check it out.
And when I give you these quick hits, these are not going to be the whole story. You gotta go check the video out to get like it's Eric Julengard from Equinox who explains the whole thing to you, like just top to bottom. He'll explain everything. But the basic idea is that cards all have QR codes. You have a digital companion app. Instead of just like tracking your collection, it does that, but it also is the marketplace. You own your collection digitally. You sell your cards on the digital marketplace, and then you can print to order. You can order print to demand. Sorry, print on demand any of the cards that you digitally own. If you own them in foil versions, you can order foils or non-foils. If you bought the card from someone in Japan on the digital marketplace, you can order it in English, French, Spanish, Japanese, whatever you feel like. If your deck gets destroyed, you have water damage, if it gets stolen, you just go print it again for a nominal fee.
So beautiful.
It's fascinating. It's a fascinating system. And then furthermore, the game uses unique, like literally one of one unique cards in about every 8 packs. If I remember that, I've been talking a lot of Star Wars Unlimited. I think it was 8 packs for Altered. You open a unique card, which is you're the only person in the world who owns that. You scan it in, it's in you own it now. They're not like you've never seen this card art before. It'll be a unique version of a particular card name that has modified stats, abilities, stuff like that on it. And then if someone really likes your card, they can hop on the marketplace, find that you own it. You can mark yourself open to this or closed to it, by the way. And they can go and make you an offer on it. They can say like, hey, would you like to sell me that? I'll pay you $10,000. And you can go, yes, this is not worth $10,000 to me. And then you just click okay. And then you're done with the transaction. You get the money and you're done because it's all digital. It's never been easier to. I know, guys. I'm telling you. So we came out of this. We were like, this literally is if this works, and that's the big caveat to everything, right?
Yeah.
Like, as the audience out there is sitting there thinking of the 1,200 ways that something can go wrong with this, and yes, but I mean, like, no actual change comes from just sitting around only taking the safe route, right?
Exactly.
I say it's dangerous because I'll go so
you would go so deep. I know you would. Now, how many people that you've talked to, what their initial reaction was? Oh, it's an NFT scam. How many times have you heard that?
None, because other than this time right now, every single time I give the spiel here, I say not NFTs, but I forgot to say it this time. But yeah, people,
not on the blockchain.
Yes, there's no blockchain involved. It's the way that the company likes to say is it's like in World of Warcraft, you have a bunch of digital stuff on your account. It's on the Blizzard servers or whatever. Same thing here. It's going to be on the Equinox servers. Something goes wrong, you support ticket in, and hopefully they can get it addressed. Like, that's just like any digital thing right now.
Yeah. I think this sounds super interesting. I'm just immediately going to here's what all the detractors are going to say. Like that's what I'm thinking about right now. Because I mean, there is and has been so much negativity and vitriol surrounding NFTs in the digital space.
From me too.
Yeah. And like, I don't like putting that kind of stuff into the communities that I'm involved in, right? And so I don't like seeing that stuff in my community, right? And so I'm like, oh no, is that what's going to happen here? I hope not. I mean, this sounds super interesting. And yeah, like I think this definitely has the potential to really change the marketplace. I mean, interesting. Like what's your initial thoughts on it? Like, how successful do you think this is going to be if done right?
I think if done right, the sky's the limit for this game. One thing that is like, it's sort of a subtle thing about how the system is described that you don't necessarily pick up on right away, but the company owns the digital marketplace, right? So if you want to sell anything, you just pop onto the app and you boom, 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 sell it. The company owns it, not a third party, not TCG Player, not Card Market. there's a small transaction fee that they get every single time a transaction is done there, just like any other market. They're going to keep it about the same
Right.
as what you expect. But this is the first time that I'm aware of in my history of TCGs that I've seen a company not only profit from the primary market, but the secondary
But the
market as well.
secondary market. Huh. Yeah,
As long
because
as the game sells, that company is making money constantly. I mean, we're talking, and I'm saying this from a positive perspective because, as you guys know, like TCGs, they are businesses. They need to make
Yep.
money. That's part of it, and
Yep.
it means that
how dare they? Wait,
Yeah.
hold on.
Yeah,
Hold
exactly.
the phone. You mean to tell me that
That's my
these
favorite,
companies
too.
need to make money to
It's a cash
survive and do
grab.
good?
Honestly, this is this close to being an NFT. Like those companies that make that, or whoever it is makes that, they get a percentage of whatever the sales are on secondary markets.
Yeah.
And it's
No,
the only difference is it's not on the blockchain.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I mean that is a significant difference too because it changes who digitally owns it, and it changes it
Yeah.
kind of it changes how the ownership works. And honestly, you know, I'm not going to get into this. You know what? I'm just not going to get into it because we don't have time in the podcast to talk about NFTs. But the point
That'll
is,
be
you
the
know,
next one.
I honestly, I'm not the one to get for that either. Like, you got to get someone else. I know just enough to get by in a conversation, but yeah, you know, as you said, Dan, like there are certainly things that people have valid criticisms about the
Mhm.
potential of this. And I don't
Right.
want to downplay any of that stuff.
Right.
My perspective is always, I look at what they can gain, what the company can gain, and what they can achieve by this. And I think on exactly what your question is. If they do everything right here, what are we going to see happen? And that's where my interest comes from. That's where my massive interest is. Like, if I need to be, you know, a betting man on kind of what TCGs I think I need to like push into, to even like from a content creation perspective, like where do I think
Mhm.
I can like really make an impact? And I
Right.
see a game that has a limit, like no limit, like this game effectively, like that can totally change the market if it does everything correctly. I'm interested. Obviously, I'm interested. You know, I want to
Right.
see what happens with this.
Right, right. Kind of like, and this is not a dig at anybody either, but kind of like how a lot of people, us included, jumped on the Lorcana bandwagon like early, right? Because it's Disney card. This was gonna be huge, and a lot of people jumped on that.
Yeah.
I get it. I understand. Like it's the kind of the same thing, right?
They were right though. It was huge.
Yeah, yeah. And we
Yeah.
saw it. A lot of people saw it early. But yeah. Yeah, I mean it's super interesting. Go ahead, Dan. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very similar thing to that. And you know, for me, it's just a game where I played it. I played Lorcana too. I played a good amount of it. It's a game where that I really respect, and I just don't love myself. So I'm really glad there's plenty of people. If you need content for Lorcana, I don't have it for you.
There's a
but
ton of people out
You've
there.
got plenty of options, including hobbies and happiness, which obviously you should, by the way, click that subscribe button. Make sure you're in there, guys. Come on. But
What are you doing?
but for me, Altered was a game I played it, and I was like, they were very smart. The way they structured in the meeting was they sat down, they explained the game and the company itself. They didn't talk a single word about their market strategy whatsoever. They they presented the game and they said, "Would you like to play?" And then we sat down and played, and we were all like, "Yeah, this is, you know, we just played Star Wars Unlimited, and we're like, it's a good game because there's a
Yeah.
lot of similarities,
Yeah.
a number of differences too. I want to be really clear; it's not the same game, but
Sure.
you'd be you would know as soon as you play it, Dan and Jim. You guys will both know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's just a good game, and I played it. I'm like, yeah, you know, I like this. This is cool. I like what the company's doing with the theme and stuff. And then they explained the next part, and I was like, oh, okay, like good game with this interesting stuff. I'm in.
Cool. Well, I'm super interested. I reached out to them on Twitter and was like, hey, because I saw your interview with him, and I'm like, all right, this looks interesting. Because again, we heard about it from Nelson. I'm like, all right, I've heard about this now. I need to dig into this. I still have yet to really learn enough about it, right? But it's on the list. So definitely very interested in Altered. And guys, if you wanna, we'll be sure to link that interview down below for you guys listening on the podcast and those of you watching as well. All right, so we just talked a little bit about Star Wars Unlimited. So let's move on to this. I think, in all honesty, too, Altered. I've been asking who do we think Altered's for. Let me ask this: who do you think Altered's for? After knowing about it, Jim, we know
Jim.
Jim's got his hand up.
Purely for
those
Jim.
Yeah.
No, so Altered, I think, is a game that is going to appeal to a lot of people. I think Altered is going to have, in a similar way, not in exactly the same way, but in a similar way to Lorcana, it's going to hit a demographic that doesn't always get TCGs. A couple, actually. It's going to hit demographic that are interested in that sort of digital, physical, phygital, if people like to call it that. I think that's a weird name, but sure.
Let's go with it. Yeah. We're going to coin it right here. MainDeck DN Phygital. All right, we got it.
It's gonna appeal to those people, but I think the big thing is like from this is the company. There's not the company. It's a company spun off by the guy who made the Libellude, which made Dixit, Mysterium, and a pile of other extremely popular, well-known board games. Dice Forge, some other stuff. So they have always had a particular mentality with how they approach theming, where they want everything to be optimism was the word they use. They want to present a world of possibility, optimism, imagination, fun, and not violence and destruction and negativity and that kind of stuff. And I think that, and see, like the artwork that we got to see so much art from the game too when we were at that. The artwork is so evocative of that vibe that I think a lot of people
100%. Yeah, 100%. I've seen artwork. 100%.
Yeah, people are gonna see this and go, oh, that looks pretty. That looks cool. I really like that. And people who aren't necessarily into TCGs may see that. And if you start, this is the interesting thing. If you start to get those people in with this digital version where they're QR code scanning and they're selling cards they don't need, they're buying cards they need easily, they lose their deck, they just reorder it, they see all those benefits, you're actually going to get this interesting new breed of TCG players that are going to approach other games and be like, why is this in the Stone Age? Like, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
My deck, or that's gonna be interesting.
It's kind of evocative of when digital CCGs started, like with Hearthstone, right? And then going from there, and like that's kind of that's kind of the possibility, like to where I see it going, right? That's that's exciting. That is exciting. That's very, very exciting.
I was also just looking up some cards for Altered, and I think I found my favorite card.
Okay.
Brass Bug.
Brass Bug. Okay.
The text, all right, it's effect. You ready?
Okay.
It states, and I quote, "I am a token."
Yes.
Not token creature token. I am a token.
Yeah, all the card text uses self-referential.
I love it.
Wow, that's cool.
It's very clear. I always go back. This is an old story from when I worked at the card shop locally, but we would get, when you work at a local card shop, shout out to anyone else who has done this and understands this. You get calls from people. Jim, did you field calls about rules for Magic all the time?
No, actually, not a lot. There were some. There were definitely some. But I can think of maybe like 5 calls that I got.
Okay.
Magic rules.
Ours, I think we just had a few groups locally who just like relied on us. They didn't know what the internet was or something. So they would call with rules questions, and one of the best ones that we ever got. It wasn't me. It was one of my coworkers who got this one, but they hung up the phone and just lost it. The question was, and it wasn't so much a question as it was just a complaint or a remark, but it was, my opponent just played 1 with nothing. How is this card fair? Okay. Because 1 with nothing is a Magic card that reads, discard your hand. Okay. and their opponent played it on them, and they played one with nothing, and they looked at their opponent and they said, okay, discard your hand. And their opponent was like, for 1 mana, I just discard my whole hand. It's one with nothing is actually, it's a terrible card. It's a card that's supposed to discard your own hand.
Yeah, it is.
Dan, discard your hand because I play it.
It is. Oh,
I love the artwork.
I'm trying to pull it up because
This
I
little
remember
purple dude and
I remember the card, but I can't remember the artwork for the life of me. So I'm trying to get it pulled up here if my internet would work.
it's a little purple guy. It's a black card, I believe.
Yes. Oh, there
Yes.
it is.
Saviors
Yeah, it
of
just says-
Kamigawa champion. No, maybe it was champions. One of the Kamigawas. It's in there.
I don't understand.
I think it was Saviors.
Yeah,
I think it was
it's
Saviors.
How is that a thing?
So
Okay, so the reason
he thought
the reason,
it was discard your opponent's hand.
yeah, he read it to his opponent as discard your hand, and your opponent said, "Oh, okay, I'll discard my hand." Right? And
What?
what I love about Altered is that, you know, when you do self-referential effects like that, it's quite clear what happens now. Everything just refers to itself and what it does, and that's kind of nice. It's like kind of goofy, but it works.
Discard ya.
It works.
I'm never gonna forget that.
It's good. It's a good
That's
story.
hilarious.
That's hilarious.
Especially when we have like thought C's where it's just like pluck a card,
Yeah.
but 1 mana. Dan, discard 7 cards.
Yeah, dude, that's the thing. That's the thing. When you're casual and like no shame whatsoever. It's just like when you're casual about
Right.
something, you just
Right.
you don't know what the wider
No, you
world
don't.
of cards like.
Yeah.
You don't have that to compare against. You just your opponent plays one with nothing on. You're like, oh my god, the card's insane.
It's kind of like, I mean, a very different reference here, but when I was teaching my wife how to play Lorcana,
Yeah.
right? She's like playing stuff and she's like, well, number one, she thought the characters could only quest once and that was it.
yeah.
Right.
Ooh.
So she was like, well, why would I just do that? Why don't I just wait? Why don't I just wait until I have all these things on board and then just I'll win? I'm like, all right, yeah, you can try that. You can see how that works out for you. Sure, go ahead. Yeah. But yeah, it just reminds me of that those kinds of interactions, the casuals.
Yeah.
You know what though? Like that's the cool thing about that was that was a strategic line of thought. Like
Yes,
with
it
her
was.
understanding of the rules, that was like
Yes.
very much a min-max, like, oh, I should only, you know, that's like when
Yes.
it first dawns on you that I should play instant spells on my opponent's turn, not mine.
Yes. Yep.
You start to realize like, yeah, that min-maxing, that's cool.
Sometimes you have to do it on your turn, though. As
Yeah,
sad
you do.
as it is.
And that feels bad.
Does
And
feel
then when
bad.
you realize a game doesn't have instant speed interaction, you're like, wait, I can't play on my opponent's turn? This is a bad game.
Literally the best thing you can do in
Bad
card
game.
games. Play on your opponent's turn.
Yep. Okay. All right. Enough one with nothing. Now we're going to talk about Star Wars Unlimited. All right. We've talked about Star Wars Unlimited on the podcast multiple times before. We're excited about it. We know MainDeck Dan's excited about it. Dan, what excites you about Star Wars Unlimited now that we've seen all the showcase? We haven't talked about this on our show yet, but they released all the different artworks. We got some showcase arts, alternate arts. There's a lot of different stuff. I'm hyped for it. I think they look beautiful. But Dan, why are you excited about Star Wars Unlimited?
I mean, it's two words, 8 letters, guys. It's Star Wars. Like, I mean, it doesn't take much for me, honestly. I'm very easy when it comes to Star Wars games. But in particular,
Did you play the Star Wars LCG?
Yep.
Okay, I'm not surprised.
No, I got you covered. Like I played them.
Yeah, I'm sure if I just said like any Star Wars game, you're probably like, yeah,
He's
I played
played
it.
the Star Wars Villainous as well.
Have you?
Yep.
Okay. All right, yeah. If I just played that with my wife last weekend, actually. Beat her with oh man, Asajj. I played Asajj, and she played
Nice.
Kylo. She enjoys playing Kylo. Oh, but here, since you've played, you'll enjoy this. So she was like one token. She's like one token away from winning, right? Okay.
Uh-huh.
And so I played. I can't remember what the card was. Oh no, she was one turn away from winning. Literally one turn away from winning because she had oh goodness, the main villain from episodes 8,
Snoke.
7, and 8. Yes,
Snoke?
Snoke on board where you can pay one force or whatever, and then get a token, whatever. That it was the main win condition. Okay, Dan knows what I'm talking about. All right,
It's been a while for me too, but it was like, because this came out like last year. I don't remember. Whatever. But.
Yeah. So anyway, I had to fade her, right, and so I had like 2 outs. Okay, I found 1 out, and it was Princess Leia, and it was like she lost all of her ambition. She had like 20 ambition, which is a resource that she needs. She lost all of it. And then I played and then with Leia, I think I got to like move all of her force tokens the opposite direction. Mm-hmm. So it set her from like 9 to back to 1, and she was not happy with me.
Every time.
I'm sorry.
Every time I played Villainous, Star Wars, Disney, whatever, it's purely a game of taking each other a peg down the entire time. It's like they're like knuckle drag out fights every single time like that.
Mm-hmm. Jim loves Villainous.
Jim loves Villainous. I know. I'm aware of that. I'm aware of how much he loves it.
I'm looking at this card, Snow Queen. This card looks pretty good. I just needed to change the topic. So literally anything.
Okay, all right. Star Wars Unlimited. Besides it being Star Wars, why are you hyped about this game?
So Destiny was one of the Star Wars games that didn't actually click with me as much as I wanted it to, surprisingly.
Okay.
It was, and I've talked about this a little bit before, I think on like our own podcast too, but like it really is, I thought that the game just felt too built around manipulating dice that it pulled itself out from me really getting into the theme of what was going on. It just felt a little too mechanical. I'm not saying there weren't theme choices. I know there was a bunch of like cool thematic stuff, but a lot of it really felt like it was like, well, this gets some indirect damage and set a die to a face. And I was like, there was like this extra layer in between me and the theme of this dice rolling stuff that just kept like pulling me out. And I collected it for a while, but I just didn't enjoy playing it that much. So when they announced Unlimited, pure TCG, ground and space arenas, leaders with like cool abilities, all the characters, I'm like, I've wanted for years another TCG where I can just jam my deck full of Lukes and Yodas and Reys and whatever, just like and open my hand up, see all these cool characters and start slamming them down. It feels I'm just a TCG guy. The dice thing is fun in board games, but not what I want to be doing necessarily in TCGs.
Right.
Whereas it was like all the pistons were firing when I saw this. Now seeing the way they're doing collector treatments, which in my opinion, again, I'm giving you my frank opinions here, is like how Magic really should be doing it, but isn't. So being able to get hyperspace rares in normal packs all the time and just chasing them down and having these collector cards extremely chase just in regular normal booster packs. Can't stress how much I like that.
Instead of buying a $300 collector's set.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a sucker. I got them back here, but like, I don't like it. I don't like that I have to buy them, but I do.
I don't agree with it, but I still do it.
I know. I'll learn someday, maybe.
I give them my credit card, and as I'm giving, I'm like, I really shouldn't do it. I shouldn't do it. I really shouldn't. But I don't
dare you be doing this. I don't like it at all.
I know what I must do, but I don't know if I have the strength to do it.
And then make a video on why it's a bad practice and people shouldn't be doing it, but I'm still gonna do it.
I think you should do a whole video just disparaging the entire practice as you're cracking open a collector case.
Dude, that's great.
Or the videos where it's like, I'm doing this so you don't have to. Don't buy the Walmart mystery packs. And then
those are bad,
everyone does it.
Yeah. I posted a video opening a Lord of the Rings collector booster on the channel, and boy, my value was not there. Let me tell you.
Yeah, no.
How much was it? How much did you pay for it?
Well, I have to be honest. One of our sponsors, our LGS, hooked me up on it. So I got away like a bandit because I made probably about $15 on the booster, on the box, and I paid nothing for it. So you can figure out about what my opens were.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Okay, so how do you feel about the gameplay? When because we played it at Gen Con, I've played it quite a bit on Felt Table.
Me too.
And one of the things that the word that I keep coming back to is the gameplay to me feels tight and crunchy. The back and forth, it feels like literally every single decision carries so much weight, and it really truly matters in the grand scheme of things. And I like that. I enjoy that very, very, very much. What's your take on the gameplay?
That's I've listened to you guys talk about it on your podcast too, and I was that was one where I didn't want to jump in. I was like, yep, I agree. They're nailing it. It's so tight. It absolutely is. I've had so many games, both Felt Table and real life, where I get down to making one, I've done a few actions. I get through some of the easier, simple actions, attack with this guy, attack with this, obviously I want to play this to kill this thing before they attack with it. And those are actually aren't always simple decisions either. But when I get towards the end of the turn, I keep finding these situations that make me just feel the game's design is remarkable, where I'm making really, really weird decisions. Like, okay, I have this thing to attack with, but if I take the initiative now and I just don't attack with it, then next turn I'll get to play this thing before he does anything, and that will completely change the tempo of the game. It'll make this 2 damage from this attack not even matter anymore. And sometimes that's right, sometimes it's wrong. Some interesting decisions. You guys know the Chewbacca card, right? When he takes damage, he readies.
Yeah.
Okay? Yes. That card is one of the weirdest ones to play with. I love when that thing's in play, because it's like, if I play the Chewbacca, then it's like, I really don't want to pass the initiative I really don't want to take the initiative at all, because as soon as I take the initiative, my opponent will kill Chewie. They're going to start attacking with everything. My opponent's deliberately delaying right now, just waiting for me to take the initiative so that they can attack Chewie. Because if I take the initiative and Chewie untaps, then I can't attack with him that turn. And there's just like a lot of decisions like that I find just really fascinating, but importantly, not overbearing. It's like the opposite again of universes, where there are a lot of decisions and they're all at the same time, and it's very overbearing. In this one, there's a few you kind of pare it down. There's a few things I should maybe do right now. And I just am not sure which one has the most like marginal value compared to the other ones in sequencing them this way.
Right. Right. Yeah. And I very excuse me. I very much enjoyed that. Like it makes decisions that I have to makes it feel a little bit easier, but also feel like, man, I'm kind of sweating over the decisions, but the decisions in and of themselves are just feel easier, right? In comparison to other games, right? Yeah. And for somebody like you, I think you kind of enjoy that, right? Don't you, Jim?
Yeah, it was nice to play. And one thing I've learned playing it, I want every single one of my cards to deal damage on enter the battlefield. I'm like, I need to kill something, and I'm going to play Vader all day. Try and get some Grixis colors rolling in there.
Because Jim likes his Grixis.
Just control everything while having a board presence. Hook me up.
One thing I'm interested to see is how the archetypes are going to form.
Oh, yeah.
Like, because again, we talked earlier about the the knowledge transfer, right? The universal language, right, of TCGs, right? And that is archetypes, right? I'm interested to see how archetypes are going to look in this game. How is a tempo deck going to look? I feel like tempo decks are going to be a lot of games, and those are going to be the decks that do very, very well in this type of system, right? How is control going to look? How is aggressive going to look? Are aggro decks going to focus on one lane of the battlefield? Like, how are they going to look? I'm really interested to see. Have you been building any decks yet, Dan?
I have built decks a little bit, but not actually since like a lot more of the cards came out. I was playing Felt Table a few weeks ago. I was playing like a whole bunch, building a bunch of decks on there, but that was before a lot of our like command drops and some of the legendaries like Boba Fett were like, you guys revealed Boba Fett.
Beautiful card.
Yes. Oh man.
Crazy card.
Yes. Very, very good. Very good card. So I like to approach the games when there's a little bit more meat to them, because I feel
Mhm.
like a lot of sort of the early deck building is approaching a format that isn't really a real format. You know,
Right, right. It's
I just want
never
to
going to
see.
be a thing. It's never going to be a thing.
Right. And so, again, props to the grinders out there, the Star Wars Unlimited content grinders who are just
Yep.
like whipping out deck lists and like
Yep.
testing all sorts of nonsense. Like that's
Holocron Gaming, Unplayable. I know there's more guys. I would shout all of you out, but those are
yeah,
two that come
there's a
to
ton.
my immediate mind.
There's a ton of them doing that. But for me, it's I kind of approach when I make content, I approach it from a perspective of I want to provide the most accurate information possible. And so I know that a lot of our viewers aren't like hardcore into one game in particular, like some of these Star
Mhm.
Wars Unlimited content creators are going to have in their audience.
Right. Right.
So I want, when you see a deck profile on MainDeck or something, I want you to feel confident that this is a deck you can pick up and go actually play at a tournament and be able to perform with. Which is where when a game's just like when a set, even for any game, not even for a game that's not out yet, but when a set's like only partially revealed, I don't do deck profiles or anything for it, because I don't feel confident that when the set releases, that
It's
deck's the
gonna
one
be
you're
an
going to want
actual
to play.
deck. Yeah. Right. Right.
Yep.
Right. Right. I am 100% right there with you. I think it's beneficial to like play it because, like with Lorcana, I was like, I'm purposefully not going to touch anything, because when we went to Gen Con, we purposefully did that to where when we were at Gen Con, that was the first time we were going to play it, and that was fun. Was that not fun?
100% the correct way to do it.
That was a lot of fun, right? But you can't do that for every game, right? Like that was a very, very unique situation.
Yeah.
And that was fun. Like I enjoyed that. But I still don't believe, like I was joking and joshing with people who were like making decks and posting them like, what was our thing? We don't even know how to play the game yet. We don't even know all
Like,
the cards.
dude,
we
got
were
24 cards.
we
man.
were
What are you
trolling
doing?
so many people, and that's
Your deck
fun.
consists of 7 cards. Singleton.
And that was fun. We have fun with just about everybody. So anyway, all right. Who do you think Star Wars Unlimited is going to be for? What types of TCG players do you think are going to enjoy Star Wars Unlimited?
I think Star Wars Unlimited and Altered, based on the way they play, have very important. Because again, Altered is just very similar, so I'm gonna group it in just to get a
Sure.
little more info out there too. But
Sure.
I think they have a quality that I've seen in a lot of the most popular board games of all time. A lot of the popular gateway games. I think Carcassonne, if for board gamers out there, is one that I like to describe this way as well. But it's a game where you can jump in and play at any skill level, and you will enjoy playing the game because of how the game's structured. You're able to sit there, and if you don't know strategy or whatever, you can just like drop your Luke, attack with your TIE fighter. You can just do your stuff and be like, yeah, cool, Star Wars. Like it's cool Star Wars stuff. And because of that action system, there's like it's a more kind of under control game. There's less kind of just like spiraling, I think, from what we've seen, that I expect that some other card game can kind of go like to Combo City and just like boom, boom, like blast. You have this turn where you play 600 cards and stuff, and your opponent goes, I can't keep up with that. But at the same time, if you're someone who likes to play competitively, you will be able to really grind and get those, make those decisions. And whenever we play Carcassonne, it's like, do I feel like not thinking today, or do I feel like thinking today? And like,
Yeah.
am I going to sit there like
Jim never feels like thinking.
Dude, I love that game. I played it a couple times. Every time I play it now, I just want to do something stupid.
Yeah, you can totally do that. The other thing you can do is you can watch someone build a city and you can go, yeah, it'd be a shame if you had to fill in 3 more spots over there, wouldn't it? And they're like, no, I'm never going to finish it now. Yeah, you can like totally get in and like hate each other out of that game. And I think that same quality exists in Star Wars Unlimited and Altered in the same way, where you can really get in there and grind and think and like try and like ace your opponent, or you can kind of just play dudes and like bash with Luke and just, have fun. And so because of that, I think these are both games that when people pick them up and experience them, it's not like unlike the first 2 games I mentioned, it's really not going to matter what their sort of like TCG competitiveness level is, they'll get into them. And for Star Wars, if you're a Star Wars fan and that sounds good to you, either way, just you should look at it for sure.
I'm one of those. Excuse me. I'm the type of deck builder where I like building a lot of different decks, and it's some of the decks I enjoy building the
Mostly
most.
bad. Go ahead.
Okay. I'll get to you later. Some of the decks I enjoy building are like theme decks, right? And like when you have an IP like Star Wars, like it's just they're asking for people to do that, and I think that's going to be something that people really enjoy doing. So I'm excited to see what kind of decks, what type of theme decks, Luke decks, or you know, different types of decks that people are going to come up with. So it's always exciting when there's IP like TCGs based on like, established IPs like that, where you can build those types of decks. So
You know what I am excited to see from this game?
yeah,
And normally I don't like combo decks,
correct.
but I really want to see some crazy out of left field combo that someone makes up in this game that just kind of goes off and does a bunch of crazy stuff, which I mean is what combo decks do. But something that people have never seen before in card games. That's for some reason I want to see it.
Interesting.
I don't know.
Okay. I mean, that would be very cool.
Yeah.
I'm right there. Let's see it. Let's see it. Someone to make it happen. Jim's going to be the one to make it happen.
No, I'm not.
Let's see it. All right.
I'm going to play a card and destroy your card. Dan.
That's
all
true.
I'm gonna
Yep,
do.
that's what you're going to do. So, okay. All right. So we talked about 4 games. We talked about My Hero. We talked about Grand Archive, Altered, and finished up with Star Wars Unlimited. So, Dan, thanks a lot for your insight into those games. And guys, if you want to learn more about either of those games, go check out the MainDeck channel. You can find any of the deck profiles. I know Dan's got a lot of deck profiles. Jim's going to check out that one for Grand Archive.
Yes.
Is it the water one?
Mythic Majestic Control Water.
It looked really cool. Whatever it is, it looked really
Merlin.
cool. We're gonna
I don't
check.
know.
We're gonna check that one out, and you guys definitely should too. So, okay, now we've got those games out of the way. Now we're gonna jump to our favorite segment. I'm excited about this segment because this is the card of the week, guys. The card of the week. I have no idea what this card is. I don't know what game it's from. Jim has no idea what game this is from. I think this is like the this is the second time that we have no clue what it is. Dan, what is this week's card of the week? Give it to me. Let's hear it. What is it? What is it?
All right. The card of the
Send
week.
it over.
Let me also let me set it here. I had to turn my Discord off because I realized it was pinging me the whole time. So I'm sorry about
yeah.
that. I
No, you're
think
good.
I think
You're
those
good.
might have been coming through.
You're good.
But I'm popping it back on so I can send it to you here. So
Cool.
checking
It
for
looks like
updates.
it's pot of greed.
I can draw 2 cards.
I draw 3 cards.
I have so much to say about this card, guys. You draw 2.
I play pot of greed.
You draw 2.
I summon pot of greed.
Some like to call this the original bill.
The original bill.
Is that
I get
like that joke lost
get
on
it.
you guys? I'm not
I get
sure.
it.
Okay.
There's a Pokemon card that allowed you to draw.
Bill came first,
it?
of course, too.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
All right.
A
linked you the
card
link
card
there.
I'm not familiar with. I'm sorry,
Yeah, there's
guys.
a trainer card in Pokemon from original set.
Gotcha.
Let me copy the image and sorry.
There
There
we
we
go.
go. Image is coming in. Okay. Let me know when you're ready.
I've got it here. I'm sending it over to Jim right now. And guys, I'm sorry. This is taking a second. I just sent it to the wrong person. That's okay. We're gonna get it right over to Jim. Here we go.
We're doing it live.
We're doing this is literally the essence of we're doing it live, ladies and gentlemen.
I wasn't sure if you guys were just like cut this out or
No, we're doing it live, guys.
Dude, it
I could've
says
told a funny
fast.
story.
It's a good card.
it says
It is.
fast.
It is a good card. It is a good card. The card of the week is called Spirit Blade Ascension from Grand Archive, first set Dawn of Ashes. So I thought very hard about the card of the week that I was going to choose for you guys because I love this segment. I think it's just so fun. And I wanted to really get something that represented what I enjoy about card games. And this card also really shows off, I think, some of the interesting features of Grand Archive as well. So Spirit Blade Ascension is a Crux action. Crux is an advanced element in the game. A very unique part of the deck building system in this game is you choose a basic element, wind, water, or fire. And you may have a level 3 in your deck. You may not at level 3 champion. If you have a level 3 champion, your level 3 champion will also unlock an advanced element. It means that these cards, these advanced element cards, are the strongest cards in the game by cost. You're not going to get anything near their level of efficiency at the basic element or colorless tier of cards. So when you reach level 3, it means suddenly, Jim, like you were saying, you just go off. You get to just do some crazy stuff, play some crazy effects. And there are some decks in Grand Archive that are their whole goal is they get to level 3 and then they go, okay, you have one turn to kill me. Otherwise, I'm going to draw a million cards and just murder you next turn. So Spiritblade Ascension is a crux card, which means for both the warrior Lorraine and the now Merlin, Merlin's a mage / warrior class. When she hits level 3 and she unlocks crux as well, they can play this card and no other classes can, which makes their decks a little bit different than other decks that would be playing even the same elements. Spiritblade Ascension costs 1 and it's played at fast speed, and it's an action, which means it acts like an instant. Basically, it's a fast speed action, so it's an instant from Magic. So it's a one-shot effect. This says, as an additional cost to activate this card, return a sword regalia you own to your material deck. So the idea is your Lorraine or your Merlin's going to come out. She's going to take a sword that she's holding to fight with. She's going to send it into the spirit realm and now choose a sword regalia from your material deck or banishment and put it on the field. A new sword appears in her hand instead. So with this card, you're able to swap a sword out for a different one you want, or, and this is the key, guys, you can swap the same sword out for that same sword again. And there are
cost. It's an engrave or whatever.
The key to this is that there are some swords that do things on enter. So this is actually a blink spell. And I don't know about you guys, but when I see blink effects in Magic, my heart gets racing because I love this nonsense of just, I'm going to absolutely abuse this effect.
So you like Sky Noodle?
Oh, yeah. Dude, Yorian's my language, man. Yeah, let's go. Let's play 80 card decks with just all the control effects, and we're just going to blink everything all day. It's so much fun, man. Come on. That's so awesome.
Blink all my planeswalkers, do it again.
Blinking planeswalkers is so dirty. Spiritblade Ascension allows you to do some pretty crazy stuff. You get to this some of our favorite decks, and this includes that Water Merlin deck as well that you're looking at. You get to level 3, and then you do some really, really wonky things, really grinding into sort of the nuances of the game. When you get to that step where you take your memory back into your hand, you actually have priority before you do that. So what you can do is you materialize your level 3. Okay, so I just reached level 3. Wonderful. Let's say I have 3 cards in hand and I have 3 cards in my memory. Okay, so I get to my recollection step, which is when I normally take my memory back, but I say, hang on, I'm going to hold priority. I'm going to play Spiritblade Ascension before I recollect. So I put a card down from my hand. I play the Spiritblade from my hand. I bounce out my sword and back in my sword that says, draw 2 cards when it enters. Okay.
Oh.
Yeah. That card's on the watch list, by the way. It might get banned. It probably should. Honestly, it's disgusting because then I go, okay,
draw 3 cards then.
Yep. No, then I draw 2 cards and I drew another Spiritblade Ascension. So I go, oh, I'm going to play another Spiritblade Ascension. Do it again. Draw 2 more cards. Now, keep in mind, every time I'm playing these, I'm putting cards down into my memory, right, to play them. Yeah. And then when I finally run out of Spiritblade Ascensions, I just pull the whole thing into my hand. I start my turn I guess I have 18 cards in hand now, or whatever.
So
if you do enough,
joking when I said Pot of Greed.
Yeah,
but
no, I was actually showing you Pot of Greed
multiple times and at instant speed.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now,
wow.
This seems absurd, and it kind of is. But this is where you get to this late stage in Grand Archive, and both decks, if they're reaching level 3, they're both kind of doing crazy things like this.
Yeah,
and it gets into a very interesting headspace of how do I interact with my opponent's Spiritblade Ascension? How do I stop them from doing this? Interesting things like the sword returning to your material deck is a cost. So you have to respond to the sword in play before they activate the Spiritblade Ascension. You know, we're getting to those grindy comp rules. Wait, hang on, let me look at the comp rules and see how this works to understand it. Right, but that's what I'm saying. if you're a competitive gamer, right? Like this is a start where you go, oh man, like I could really get people by just knowing how the rules work in this game, and you can.
Yeah. But at that point, if you try to, get rid of it, it's still, they can play this at instant speed to just throw it in the back and protect it. So, that's rough, man.
You want to answer it before they materialize. Before they go to level 3, you have to try and get rid of that sword. And there's a lot of decks. There's a lot of decks in the format. There's a lot of decks that are low to the ground. Like, okay, if the deck's just going to, if my opponent's just going to try to go to level 3 and go off, I just have to kill them before that.
Kill you before then.
And an interesting way that the game works is that, because it costs you more cards to materialize the higher levels, like you have to banish more cards from your memory to do that. The decks that are playing low to the ground, just like, I'm just going to go to level 1 and I'm going to sit there. Or actually, some decks just sit at level 0. They don't even necessarily care about like materializing any champion at all.
Yeah.
They never have to banish those extra cards to level. So by the time you're level 3, if I'm still level 1, I'm up 5 cards on you because I didn't materialize level 2 or level 3. That's 2 cards for level 2 and 3 cards for level 3. So there's an inherent balance actually to how that works. And that I like, even though you're playing these crazy cards, like first of all, you have to beat my 5 card advantage on you to make that back. Right.
Right.
Otherwise I've got more resources straight up because I didn't do that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Fascinating, I think.
How many different sword regalias are you playing in these types of decks?
How
powerful are those cards?
So one of the decks I like right now, I'm playing 4 swords in the material deck. One sword is 2 of them are commons. One of them's a rare. That's the card that should probably be banned. And then one of them is I think it's actually starter deck exclusive card or whatever. So the cards themselves are powerful stuff because like at the different stages of the game, they're powerful in different ways. But 2 of the 2 basic swords that don't cost anything are, one of them just is more powerful if I have no allies. So, and the deck I like to play right now doesn't play a lot of allies to board. Instead, it just tries to do some big attacks, big damage sources for my champion instead. Most of my allies are just sack to draw cards from another effect. And then the other sword is a sword with an ability called True Sight, which allows it to pierce stealth units, which allows it to get through particular interaction that my opponent might play in the late game. I might go for a big attack, and the opponent can play an instant speed card that gives them stealth for the turn, which is then they just vanish, right? And I can't hit them with that attack. So if I have the Sword of Seeking, the True Sight, then that sort of negates some of those outs to me killing them, which again is like what sort of the end game is about. The other 2 swords are cards with on-enter effects that I'm just trying to abuse.
Gotcha. Okay. Very cool. Very cool. All right. Well, Jim, what do you think about this Spirit Blade Ascension?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's fun.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is this week's card of the week. Thank you, MainDeck Dan, for Spirit Blade Ascension. I've learned a lot about Grand Archive tonight, and I was literally thinking this when he was talking about Grand Archive. I'm like, man, I got to see if I can get some starter decks, man. Because when we went by the booth at Gen Con, I think they were out of starter decks. I was disappointed because I was 100%. You got a playmat. You like that playmat.
Yeah, I got
Their
some
playmats are really
person.
nice, dude. Their playmats are microfiber.
Yeah, they looked very, very nice. But yeah, I'm gonna have to try and get some of this stuff just so I can try it out because it looks really, really, really interesting. So you want to play some of this, Jim?
Potentially.
It's too many games.
I know it is. But there's never like I'm always down to like pick up a starter deck and like try something out. Yeah. Right. Because then it's like, all right, I've got some starter decks. I mean, I can still play it, I can still play it. And then if I want to buy some other singles, I can still do that. So I always enjoy stuff like that. So that is this week's card of the week, Spirit Blade Ascension from Grand Archive TCG. All right, well that's all we got for you guys this week. This has been it's been a long conversation, but that's okay. I've thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. So Dan, thanks a lot for hanging out with us today. Why don't you tell everybody where can they find MainDeck content? Where can they find you and all of your content on the internet?
Yeah, absolutely, guys. It was an absolute pleasure, of course, and I do apologize because I do have a tendency to just talk way too much. So I'm
Hey, it's
partially
not a
responsible
problem.
for this.
It is not
Dare
a
you talk on
problem.
a podcast?
I know, I know. People can find MainDeck. MainDeck on YouTube, of course, is where we're posting a lot of our content right now. But we have a website, MainDeck.games. We're right in the middle of a website redesign. I've been working with our web developer, and we're going to have a lot more content coming on there very soon, which I'm very excited about. Otherwise, I'm everywhere as Main Deck Dan or Main Deck Games. Shouldn't be too hard to find me. Just look out. There's a Main Deck with a space in the middle, and they're like a Portuguese Yu-Gi-Oh store. So that's not the right one. If the guy you're watching is speaking Portuguese, that's not me. I'm just letting you know.
He doesn't even know Portuguese.
I can't
I
even
sure
spell
don't.
Portuguese.
Yeah,
That's even a tough word to spell. So, wow.
it is 100%. So, all right. Well, again, thanks, Dan, for hanging out with us today. And we definitely are going to get you on another episode of the podcast in the future to talk more about TCG. So thanks a lot, Dan.
I would love it. Thanks, guys.
All right. That was a great conversation.
Yeah, it was.
That was
a lot of fun.
So Grand Archive, I'm really interested in that game. Very much interested in that game. Altered as well. I don't know about my hero. That or Universes, the Universes system.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad there's people out there who enjoy it. But I don't know. It just might be a little too much for me.
Yeah.
Is it gonna be too much for you, Jim?
Honestly, it seems like it. I was playing an aggro strategy, not even paying attention.
You weren't because he was telling you what to play.
I
was upset because I couldn't ask him what to play. You stole him.
Yeah, I did.
But yeah, Altered, Grand Archive, and of course Star Wars Unlimited. Those all seem a lot of fun. We've talked about Star Wars Unlimited on the show before. But guys, let us know. What did you guys think of that conversation? Let us know down below. Dan, a fantastic individual. We had a lot of fun talking to him. This is another one at the end of the conversation. We continued for. We could have kept talking, but I had to let him go. I had to let him go. I'm like, I've kept you way too long. I'm like sitting back. You're like, oh, let's keep talking. But we'll have him back. We 100% will have him back because he's got a lot of great insight. He's just like yourself. Right. And I would tell you, I was talking to Ridge earlier today and talking about like our strengths as a podcast. And I'm like, one of the things I love about Jim is Jim just has that wealth of knowledge when it comes to these TCGs that I know I don't have. And I just poke and I prod and I just pull it out. Yeah. So getting somebody on like Dan, I was like, it's like another one of you almost.
Yeah.
It's,
when he was like 25 years of Magic, I'm like, woo!
Yeah,
my man. Around, man.
My man. Yeah. So, all right, before we get out of here, don't forget, guys, if you're listening to the podcast on one of these amazing podcast services, don't forget, guys, if you could leave us a 5-star review and leave us an actual review, we would be flattered to read that on the show. But also, those 5-star ratings help us get into more ears and get out there to more people so they can hear the goodness that is hobbies and happiness. So again, leave us that 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you are listening. And then if you are watching over on YouTube, don't forget, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on bell notifications so you can get notified when we release more episodes of the podcast over on YouTube. So before we go, Jim, where can people find you on the internet?
Yeah, you guys can find me on Twitter, Twitch, Instagram at Jim Morgan, HNH.
You guys can find me on Twitter at _DJ Campbell. You guys can find me on Instagram at Daniel.G.Campbell. If you head over to our website, www.hobbiesandhappiness.com, you can find links to all of our content there, post on a lot of different social services. Most of our content is going over to youtube.com/hobbiesandhappy. So again, thanks everybody for hanging out with us today. Jim, another fantastic conversation. We've got a lot of great topics in the pipeline. I told Jim about some of them, and we're excited to get those recorded out to you guys in the coming weeks. So thanks everybody for hanging out with us today, and we'll catch you in the next episode. See you, everybody.
Take care.